I'm going to use Arabelle's game to show a technique that I want you all to kind of be aware of. So she has this Flappy Bird ripoff, right? And the only thing that I really want to play with is the bird object. So I'm just going to look at where this bird object gets displayed. Okay, so there's this whole bird that gets displayed at... Oh, this object might be a little bit rough to do this with. It gets displayed, centered up at, looks like X comma Y. You guys all see that? Right, that's kind of where the bird's positioned at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this kind of funny trick to try to make this bird spin around. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check. I'm going to check that I can at least start to get this working by changing the way the bird's drawn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a new coordinate system. And the way you do that is with the push matrix method. So what this does is this says, okay, there was an old coordinate system, right? And in the old coordinate system, 0, 0 is in the top left corner, and the x-axis goes to the right, and the y-axis goes down. You guys all comfy with that one? Like, that's the default, right? So now I'm making a new one by pushing a new coordinate system, and that's all a push matrix does. Now, it should be noted that I only want to use that new coordinate system here to draw my bird, right? So at the end of drawing my bird, I'm going to do a pop matrix, which is going to go back to the old coordinate system. You guys with me on that? So there's a new coordinate system that I'm going to push on here. And then when I'm done drawing in that new coordinate system, I'm going to throw the old one away. Or I'm going to throw this new one away and go back to the old one. So in my push matrix, the first thing I'm going to do is translate, which is going to change where 0, 0 is. And it's whining that it expects 2 floats. So I want to translate 0, 0 to x comma y. So now it's going to draw 0, 0 as though it was at this point x comma y. Or it's going to draw stuff as though the origin was at x comma y. Which means that my bird should get not drawn at x comma y, but at 0 comma 0. And my ellipse should, and my other ellipse here should get drawn at minus whatever and 0. Basically, all I'm doing is changing x and y to 0 and 0 in all of these.
X plus radius.
Yep, thank you. And I could probably delete the 0 pluses, right? That seems a little silly. Oops. Okay, so let's just check that this is working. So it seems like, oh, and I left a gapping in there because I didn't save this when I closed it. So it seems like the game is working in exactly the same way it was before. Right? You guys all see that? So all I did was redeclare, 0, 0 is going to be at this new point, x comma y, right? And then I'm just going to draw stuff like it's 0, 0 there. That just makes doing math a little easier, right? You don't have to do, okay, the ellipse needs to be moved over by x and blah, blah, blah. So then I'm also going to add a variable up here to my bird that I'm going to call float angle. And my goal is to make Arabelle's bird spin around because I think that would be hella funny. Okay, so I made a float that I'm calling angle, right? And then in here, I'm going to not only translate my coordinate system to x, y, I'm going to rotate everything. I'm going to spin everything around. So I'm going to rotate by my angle. Okay. Now, if you want to know about the rotate command, oops, there was everybody's grade. You go into rotate processing, right? And the important thing here is going to be that the rotate command rotates by an angle, and angles must be specified in radians. And you can convert from degrees to radians with the radians function. Now, if you've had a bunch of math, you probably think in radians, do stuff in radians. I'm just going to use the radians command because I'm frankly kind of lazy. So I'm going to go back in my sketch, and I'm going to rotate by angle turned into radians. And then every time I draw the bird, I'm going to increment my angle.
By 1 degree. Oh, 1 degree.
Yeah, so this is going to be by 1 degree, right? So I also need to initialize my float angle, right? So I should put that in the initial bird. And it remains to be seen. I haven't yet figured out whether this is going to rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. Right, so is the bird's nose going to go down at first or up at first? My suspicion is that it'll go down. But let's see.
They flipped the axis.
Now it really is like duck game.
Yes! Bird spinning slowly in circles. Why is the bird spinning slowly in circles? Yeah, it's only 1 degree at a time. And it's a little weird, right? The bird is not spinning. The coordinate system that the computer is using to draw the bird is spinning. You guys all see that? So let's see, my y-axis goes down, right? Initially, and then my y-axis is kind of going this way, right? As the bird gets spun. Oops, kind of lagging. Okay, so we can play.
Oh no, don't.
This feels a lot more correct somehow.
I want to see it spin.
Dang it! Almost had you, Chris. I almost had you.
Spinning though.
Yeah, and it still spins. Why does it still spin?
Because you didn't tell it to not spin.
Yeah, because I didn't tell it not to. I told it every time it draws the bird that it should update the rotate, right? So you could do that somewhere else, right? So
Rotate.
you maybe want that in one of the, if the bird is alive, right, then you would rotate or something.
Rotate the pulse.
Okay, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah, it should be easy to implement getting it to rotate only when it's alive.
See it die.
All right.